aircraft, perhaps still flying great markets. That's the message that is coming to land. The measures made first through this particular aircraft, actually delivered to the Luftwaffe. We don't really know what they used it for. Scientists and astronauts with that registration, you see A-K-2-I. And we should have to mention, we've mentioned Uwe Bardo, the captain. He's the chief of the Stiftung flight operations, and his co-pilot is Georg Spate. Uwe is the training captain of this comparison.
Sport airplanes, single seaters, biplanes, and these were
going upside down in his, that's his aircraft, he owns that. The one that Anna's flying belongs to the fighter collection. She does have a young man, and I don't mean to say she has a boyfriend, she has the aircraft called the Young.
Is that you climb in this aircraft and you know that you're climbing, if you have a little bit of aeronautical culture, you're climbing into one of the absolute icons of the art of flying. It's an airplane which you don't sit in, you just strap in and it becomes part of you. You just think of something and it does it. And if you think wrong, it will not bite you too hard. It will teach you. This aircraft was designed again with genius, and we have went to Sweden and set up the company called Svenska Aeroplankivolaget, short Saab. So Saab comes from roots of the Saab.
As a ski-equipped Piper Super Cub onto the Alpine glaciers.
Flying the same club at Merida.
And Taft Smith also has the man flying the other Booker. He owned.
Flying a Booker is always a moment, a particular moment in the life of a pilot. You can't get used to it. Anytime you climb into one of these wonders, you just marvel at the way they were made and the way they behave in the sky.
In fact, I watched Anna in the hangar 2 days ago repairing the cowling on this engine, and she had to give her a wave.
Compliments of Anna Walker.
As Taft comes into land from the left.
And with them we enter into the hard history of flying, because these airplanes are exceedingly rare. In fact, there's only one Gladiator flying today.
Indeed, and here it is.
And here it is. Anna landing. And Taft is probably coming to land point.
I have a feeling he might be going home.
Definitely. Stay home.
So on the far side of the airfield then, the Westland Lysander and the Gloucester Gladiator. The Lysander, you may have noticed, is black all over. It's the clandestine operator, the aircraft famous for dropping special operations executive troops and civilian workers behind enemy lines in occupied France during the war, often in the dark, on just 3 lights and a flashing torch. But let's enjoy the 2 Mercury-engined aircraft in beautiful Shuttleworth formation as they come by.
Those missions to France back in 42, 43, 44 were probably some of the boldest flying ever made.
Even today you can get lost. I know pilots who got lost using the latest GPS, and they had no GPS. They took off from here, Great Britain. They flew across the channel at night, dark nights. They crossed, what, 150 or 200 miles of France without any lights, without anything on the ground to be used as a kind of navigation aid. And just from time to time, maybe a silvery reflection of the moon in the river or whatever, and they would find a grass field, not an airfield, a real field, maybe what, 1,000 feet long.
Pink Lady B-17.
And on top of it, the crown, the jewel on top of the crown, if I may say, is the only gladiator flying in the world. Shuttleworth Gladiator.
Shuttleworth Trust Gladiator, and it's flown for us today by Dave Mackay, an amazing aeroplane. Incidentally, if you're wondering about the markings, the sort of red on the silver, it is the Royal Norwegian Air Force. It was painted that way for use in a film, and it's dual marked for two squadrons, 423 and 427 of the Norwegian aircraft, Norwegian Air Force. And interesting to compare it, Bernard, with the Polikarpov, of which it is a contemporary.
What year was the
first flight of the Gladiator, 1934, of the prototype Gladiator, and sorry, that was the Follins SS-37, which was what it developed from. The Gladiator in 1935, developed in 1935, flew in 1936, same year as the Spitfire.
So it was, yeah, it was almost contemporary with the Hurricane and Spitfire, and despite that, it's really dated as a design, but nevertheless, it's beautiful. That's the ultimate flight.
But interestingly, of course, this aircraft actually fought in the Battle of Britain. Not many of them, no, not this particular aircraft, but Gladiators did. Not many of them, but some of them. Oh, now, talking of beauty and between the wars style, just watch 6 de Havilland Dragon Rapids taking off.
Duxford airline system. Today we have 6 fleets flying from the airlines back in the 30s.
What a wonderful sight, 2 B-17s in the air at the same time.
Escorted by a single P-47, the Judd Thunderbolt, but the B-17s are something else.
Became symbols of this period of the war. They were used in the Pacific theater too, but maybe it's a name that caught one of those journalist inventions, Flying Fortress. Anyway, they were one of the few aircraft who achieved immediate and absolute symbol status, legendary status.
And in fact, your French B-17 calls itself the Fortress Toujours Volant, always flying,
absolutely,
which is very nice, I think.
We have a small group, and really you have to dig deep into the pockets to keep these monsters flying when you think about what it costs. And recently, for instance, we had on this French-based B-17 performed the complete wing disassembly and reassembly because of we wanted to make sure that things were not getting critical in the wing structure, and it's so expensive to maintain that I have to say that we are very happy today to have our sponsor for this aircraft, which is the oil company Total, which helps a lot in providing us with enough fuel to keep the aircraft flying and keep the crews capable of flying, because of course these are complicated machines. You don't hop in them and fly them like that. You need to train, you need to maintain your proficiency, and without a sponsor this would be absolutely impossible.
Well, indeed, and Sally B has just got a new sponsor, with which they're very pleased, very grateful for. They've completely revamped the Sally B website. That's DCG Media, and they've done a wonderful job with producing a new website, which is very, very expensive to run these things. They'd like you to join, at least to consult the website produced by DCG Media, and think about joining and supporting Sally B as she flies by here, because it's just an amazingly expensive job keeping her going. Although she lives here at the Imperial War Museum, she is not financially supported by them, other than the fact that she has facilities here. She is purely supported by the goodwill, if you like, of the people who join the Sally B Supporters Club. She's flown today by Roger Mills, Jim.
17 is composed mostly of former French Air Force and airline retired mechanics. And here comes a P-47. The P-47. This one has a particular name painted on the fuselage, and in fact this nickname sums up what it's all about. No guts, no glory. And that's what warbird flying and warbird maintenance.
Music for Sally B, but as we were listening to that, this constellation took off. Now, you don't very often see that kind of thing, and it's just a heart-stopping moment, isn't it?
In times of war and in times of peace. Same rolling engines, same technology, same spirit of flight.
And coming round again for another pass, the P-47D Thunderbolt in the hands of Stu Goldspink, whose day job is flying as a captain with Britannia Airways. Ask him which he prefers. Apart from that,
you know what? That's a neat way to spend your money.
Indeed. It's the CEO of 78th Fighter Group's 82nd Fighter Squadron when it was stationed here at Duxford in 1944.
And here comes André Dominé and Michel Bazzi landing their B-17. It's a huge, big aircraft, but in fact it's not that difficult to fly. At the time, the Americans had designed very cleverly a kind of a natural genealogy of aircraft, starting with the Stearman biplane, then you went to the 86, twin seat, but single engine. Then Bomber Cruise went to Beech 18s, and then into the Fortresses. And
the American Air Museum, the glass wall that curves around the American Air Museum commemorates the losses sustained by Americans flying from Britain in the war, and the wall was etched by Renato Nemes, and it illustrates the 6,346 aircraft of the 8th Air Force that were lost, 692 of the 9th Air Force, and the 24 lost by the United States Navy.
Sally B has landed. There are only 2 flying fortresses flying outside of America, and they are here today at Duxford Flying Legends again. It's called Flying Legends, but it's a legend in its own.
Okay, for something entirely different now, turn your attention to the left, ladies and gentlemen, and here is United Airlines of Duxford.
The Wooden Fabric Fleet. 6 of them, 12 Gypsy engines, signed by Geoffrey de Havilland with the very graceful shapes of the moth. Of the airline to say, okay boy, now you are on your own, you'll fly. is on 15 seconds from the threshold and landing.
And one of the interesting things about this airfield is it doesn't have formal air traffic control. The tower that we're beside, in the middle here, old historic tower, actually is here so it's a very interesting way of doing it, and works very well on the hard runway and some on the grass. That white one is one of the Air Atlantic ones with the Air Atlantic crest on the tail, and there's the Duxford one at the front in the RAF colours. Actually, he's on the grass as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he's on the grass, just by the runway, and he landed right wheel first in order to save the left tire, probably. On the grass. It's softer.
And AGTM, George Able George Terre Mike, because we say something quite different these days, Golf, Alpha Golf, Tango Mike, but still Mike is the same one.
And can you imagine that they went from the repeat to this in, well, 10 years?
Fantastic. We'll be quiet and let it rumble by.
Her Majesty the Super Connie, Lockheed. In its best appearance, with everything inside, designed and had a video stand.
Wonderful sound of 4 right double cyclone air-cooled radials, 3,250 horsepower each. Well, they seem to have changed the plan from yesterday. We had 4 of them, 1 solo and 3 in formation. For you wasn't enough. Here comes the Connie into land from the left.
And this is strange in terms of what happened in certain places. All these aircraft are from Los Angeles. Something like 50% of the world production of famous movies happened in Hollywood, and it looks like that 50% of the world production of legendary aircraft happened in the Los Angeles area. Mustangs were built by North American in Downey, and just 15 miles north of Downey, which is a suburb of Los Angeles, were blacks. And the Constellation was built in Burbank, which is just next door to Hollywood Hills, and the scoop under the belly. Some others say it's the guns.
The gun ports, but they usually taped over, aren't they? So it's,
yeah.
But it is a classic Mustang sound.
Mustang became an icon on modern art, it was the subject of many photographs and paintings.
Simply giving a little wave as he goes off upside down. Lovely sound of the, well, I was going to say Rolls-Royce Merlin, but it isn't, it's the Packard version. Of course, the Mustang first started off with
it was equipped with a British designed engine, the Merlin. Well, the American version of the Merlin, but in fact it took time to develop this aircraft into what it is, what it became, which is a legend and probably the most successful long-range fighter ever designed. Even today, no aircraft can pretend to be in the same league of the Mustang.
And they designed it and built it in 117 days, less than 4 months. And that aircraft landing now is Twilight Tear, an extraordinary story. That aircraft was stationed here at Duxford towards the end of the war. 78 Fighter Group. She was the personal aircraft of Lieutenant Bill Davis. He flew 35 combat missions in her against the Luftwaffe, but she disappeared. Somehow she survived, and she's come back here. Last year, her family, Bill Davis's family, came to watch their aircraft fly. Sadly, he died in 1967. Quite extraordinary story. Meantime, the stage has been taken by hurricanes.
The humpback beauty.
The aircraft that came in before the Gladiator.
And the Hurricane, in fact, was of course the Spitfire's little brother during the Battle of Britain, but the historical truth is that the Hurricane...
They were completely complementary. The Spitfire could go after the fighters and the Hurricane could go after the bombers. One of the differences, though, the
all metal. And the thing with the Hurricane is that it was very, very, very forgiving and easy to fly, despite being less of a performer than the Spitfire in terms of sheer speed. It was very, very maneuverable and very forgiving to land, for instance, compared to the Spit. If only because the pilot on the Hurricane sits on top of the fuselage, if I may say, because of this humpback, and during approach up front than in the Spitfire, where you are sitting in the middle of the thing. In fact, you're contained within the fuselage. The Spitfire, while in the Hurricane, you're sitting. The Hurricane was designed by Sir Sidney Cannon, one of the
Interestingly, Geoffrey Eveley, now an Air Vice Marshal, served in 802 Naval Air Squadron in the 1930s. He almost certainly flew this very aeroplane you see flying at the moment. He was an RAF officer, as were half the aircrew on board the carriers. He did become an Air Vice Marshal, but with becoming modesty. About the aeroplane landing, he says that landing these fragile aircraft on ships wasn't as hard as you might think. He was much more worried about taking off. Again, only when he seemed to run. Well, joining me now is Air Vice Marshal Geoffrey Eveley, who used to fly the Nimrod of His Majesty's ships in the Mediterranean in the 1930s. Okay, we've got the wrong insert there. We're going to try and find the right one in just a moment. I think we're ready for that now. Let's try again. Only was it difficult to take off when the sea was rough. Taking off carrier is not steep. service in the home Mediterranean routes there. Funnily enough, no Nimrod ever actually fired its guns in anger. Guns being two Vickers 303 machine guns above the fuselage firing through the propeller. It also carried 20-pound bombs on it. Engine is a Rolls-Royce Kestrel, forerunner of the Merlin, 600 horsepower.
Remember, this was a time when there was a saying about the Royal Air Force. The saying was, pilot aeroplane. This was a time where young pilots were very war was not losing at the time, and there was very little money to provide the pilots with modules. We were flying this machine.
With other RAF Spitfire squadrons. They were part of the air spotting pool of the 2nd Tactical Air Force, and they were painted in their invasion stripes, which the stripes incidentally like one of the...
So you have to compensate for the wind, which is not negligible today, but not very strong. Adjust your speed. Pick up. Do it again.
Now the aircraft's a problem. On the left, with the invasion stripes, is the Mark 9 Spitfire of the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight. In the weeks before D-Day, this aircraft actually claimed a half kill on a Messerschmitt 109 and was damaged 3 times, including 2 belly landings. This actual aircraft, the one coming in from the left at the moment. Spitfire, that was one of the very later marks, and she's actually painted in the colours of an aircraft called PS-888 of 81 Squadron in Salita, and that was the aircraft that flew the last operational Spitfire sortie on the 1st of April 1954. It was It's a photographic sortie over Johor, where they were hunting communist guerrillas. And on the left-hand side of the nose, you may be able to see with a pair of binoculars, she has the last painted on the side.
One thing which is difficult in this demonstration, in this demo, is the fact that the Spitfire has a very, very tiny head-on signature. It means that when you're flying and when you're sitting, has been the subject of so many films made in Hollywood and even television series, just like Both of them here. One is from England and the other one from France. And both of them are now picking up speed.
More of that great grumbling growl cracking the double wasp 18-cylinder air-cooled engine. And interestingly, when they say double wasp, they mean that there's 2 rows of 9 of these cylinders. Absolutely extraordinary. In the front of that aircraft, so 9 cylinders arranged circularly around the drive shaft.
It looked like a Concorde.
Avenger and the Sky Raider. Perhaps not the prettiest aircraft we have here today, but amazingly useful. I was just saying about the Corsair when I said that the 2400 horsepower comes from that engine through an enormous propeller. The Entente Cordiale, France and Britain, flying in very good aircraft. Wow.
Brian Smith is leading with a British-based Corsair.
That is amazingly close formation, I have to say. You said that Brian Smith was leading, but Eric was almost in front of him.
No. Are you kidding? I've got to change my lenses. As you may see, the air is getting a little turbulent, and are those gentlemen going to end up into the cloud up there? No. Belly just barely scraping the cloud, and on the way down, they do what Corsairs do best, which is accelerate like a free-falling steam engine. Under command of a strange character. He was a hard drinker, hard smoker, and girl chaser, and a good storyteller, by the way. Greg Boyington and the Black Sheep Squadron really wrote very humorous, but at the same time literally significant pages of the war in the Pacific, flying those Corsairs. Aptly, well-named aircraft.
It's interesting, subsequently, it was just undercoat. But we've still got the yellow nose, and it makes it look rather nice.
It's nice, yes? The Corsair is a nightmare in terms of maintenance and restoration, because don't forget that we're seeing and we fly so well. I mean, switch on the engine, switch on the lightning engine, because these products, they are thousands and thousands of hours of more hardware than normal maintenance. Those aircraft were, most of them were junk.
specialties in night flying and attacking with radar. They flew in close support of the invasion fleets. They attacked any German R-boat or E-boat or U-boat or even miniature submarine that they might see. They carried an ASP-2N radar. They used rockets, bombs and depth charges. And the other aircraft, the small silvery grey one, is the Sky Raider AD-4.
Small is red. When you look, if you're a pilot, if you look at the display of the remember that this is a manned aircraft in terms of muscle. You need both hands on the stick to that with this traffic in the skies, and sometimes I need both feet on the same rudder pedal and look at the way they stomp on the rudder. Now look at the rudder. He's just pushing like mad on the top rudder to keep the nose from diving into the ground. And so it demonstrates that the Avenger is it's a very safe aircraft. Grumman designed again Bulgaria. As it's not a fighting aircraft, it's not a big reason for the but the torpedo bomber deliberately for its size again top rank.
Of course, the interesting thing is they chose to call it the Avenger because Pearl Harbor needed Avenging. And I mean, when it first went into combat, it was actually disastrous. 5 out of the first 6 aircraft in flight were lost. But it did go on to become the Allies' premier carrier-borne torpedo bomber. Up to 1,600 pounds of internally stored torpedo bombs. And there were 35 different variants of this thing.
Well, the Avenger is on stage. But soon the Spats became legend because they were mostly used to pinpoint and rescue downed pilots in North Vietnam territory. And
one from the Duke of Brabant Air Force, interesting Dutch organisation that protects all their officers, is the flagship of their fleet. And one that used to be, one of them believed that it may be staying here, but these for the rest of the season rather than going away.
So we get half of the number of creatures flying in Europe. Here, this guy for us. Never been thinking about not flying around. The mission was a bomber. It's like more big like that. Well, interesting.
9,889 aircraft. That's a heavy bomber, that brilliant bomber.
Look at them with this menacing weather. Perfect setting.
For the pilot's wife, who sees on the other side, Connie Carter.
The B-25 has been because probably of their dimensions and the fact that they were used in this type of work, and they were very famous for the nose art they received. As support for works of art, if you can call it that.
Curtain, and he entertains us all, us kids, before the finale of the pantomime. That's what Stephen Gray is doing for us now in his favourite aeroplane, the Bearcat.
Left of the airfield, you might be able to see Stevenson bring it back, broken it back.
And as Stephen Gray climbs into the vertical, Pink Lady, the B-17 departs to return to La Belle France.
It's based in Orly, courtesy Air Force, and the airport of Paris, and they have accepted to house a few historical big machines, including this one. And the Bearcat still goes on doing the yo-yo. 30 mph for sure, and when you pull up, it's wow. Someone say that the experience a young man was able to extract from this aircraft at the time was only matched by the experience he had the first time he met the woman. It might be a little bit of an exaggeration, of course, but again, flying this machine.
He's plainly just on the other side.
He's just over there, isn't he?
Hey.
Here we are.
gets its act together for its second pass in front of us. There were 26 aircraft in that formation. There are now 24. I was using the word miracle just a few minutes ago. Remember, this is not sponsored by any air force, by any state. This is just people doing things because of the on this side, the right-hand side, is the fighter collections, Indian head located roughly the French weather and look at the aircraft, the bulb on the other side of the field, in front of us. Picture yourself during the war. So we're all very lucky to be here today. It is a great privilege to be involved in something like this. Remember that in our countries in Europe, now Europe is a whole, and in our countries, France, Germany, England, Spain, wherever, you can visit hundreds of the best human mind ever designed. But when you take the 20th century, and when you take a major century, you find out that aviation, middle, right, gigantic history made of millions of tiny bits, and aviation was in the middle of all this. And there are no hundreds of aviation castles or museums or around the world. And there are no hundreds of
Och här har liksom man flöjit in med mig. Och med mig. Så krabbar vi in.